What is up, everybody? Welcome to another post-game reaction. Today, Lions, Dolphins, 24-17. Miami handled business. Lions 13 yards away. I believe it was 13 yards away from a potential tie or going for two to take the lead. A 2-minute drill by Hendon Hooker comes up short due to a very unfortunate way to have a pass intercepted. It was a read and understanding where the blitzer was coming from, but still having it essentially was going to be knocked away, but somehow the defender caught it and pulled it in and picked it off and ended the game that way. A game that was much better in the first half, a 14-7 lead. You felt the offense was pretty fluid. There was good movement with the ball, a ton of flags all over the place from both sides. There were some very, I would say, ticky-tack type of calls in this game. The Lions were penalized 13 times for 86 yards. Miami penalized 9 times for 60 yards. Penalties were just being thrown all over the place. A lot of alignment issues for the Lions side of things, a couple of illegal formations. I believe a few of those were called on Jackson Meeks, for example. Too many of those little calls. There was a lot of special teams penalties as well that were just being thrown out there across the board. And we'll go through those. But we're going to walk through this kind of play by play, talk through this game, some of the main takeaways. But I will start off first with Kyle Allen putting together another really strong performance. 14 of 17 in this game. Really, a couple of those incompletions were some high misses early. And then he just dialed it in from the rest of the way. 2 touchdowns, no picks, 124 yards, was sacked 1 time. Kyle Allen played a very strong game once again, building on last week, working once again today as that second string quarterback. So he was, I thought, fantastic today. Jacob Sailors had a big game as well, 13 of 39, really productive for the Lions. I thought all the backs pretty much played well. Craig had a couple of negatives in there which hurt him, but Sione Vaki looked good. Getting Sione Vaki back was awesome. 5 of 30 in this game. Had a couple of nice grabs as well. Specifically, had the one grab where he kind of just scooped it and saved it off the turf. So Sione Vaki was great to get him back. But let's go through this play by play. We'll start off here. Lions getting the ball first, and it began with Jackson Meeks working into the flat. He was wide open. I believe he was working on the slot, got wide open. Then they went to a boot action play to Tom Kennedy, picked up 7 yards. It was 2 very easy completions to get things started. 2 good reads, getting the ball into their hands quickly. I think the biggest thing for me with Jackson Meeks today that he put on display was run after catch ability. It wasn't that he went out there shaking guys left and right. What he did do is he got upfield quickly, knifed upfield quickly, ran through some contact. We saw that towards the end. And I thought it was a big deal that they played Jackson Meeks on that final drive to get him back into the game, wanting to see how he would produce in that kind of spot. And Meeks on the day was 7 receptions, 93 yards, had the touchdown. Really, I think for the most part, a lot of his were zone windows, a lot of real openings there that were good spots by the quarterback, but he took advantage. Didn't drop any passes, got a field after the catch, did a really good job hitting spots, some savvy route running, worked the seam later on in this game where he kind of felt the safety bailing and got inside, got an inside hip positioning, opened himself up for the quarterback. Just a lot of really good positioning on the day for Jackson Meeks, and they got started really well like that. Then we had a 1-yard run by Craig Reynolds. I had Egukan with a pretty nice block. We see him moving around a little bit on the interior. And then we ended up getting called for a hold by Tom Kennedy on a run that popped a little bit. It popped towards the outside. Tom Kennedy gets called for the hold as it kind of works away from him. Unfortunately, a lot of the day would get called like that penalty-wise. Then we threw a screen pass that ended up getting just absolutely blown up. I think that was Kingsley Egukan, who didn't really connect with anybody when he was working out in space on the left side, and then the Lions had to punt for that. So again, penalties were a killer because we were on top of the chains, we were positive gains. All of a sudden, you get this holding call on Tom Kennedy, which was another good run, and everything gets set back. But you punt it away, and this is when Sione Vaki gets his helmet on the ball. Ball gets knocked out loose, forced fumble. They ended up recovering there. I thought the ball was being held pretty poorly by the punt returner in that spot, but it's great to have Sione Vaki back, really for everything that he can do on all special teams unit. That is a true core special teamer in my eyes. He came back as a starting kickoff returner for the Lions, replacing Craig Reynolds in this game, getting a look at him there. It's awesome that he's able to play all of these units, be impactful. He's a great tackler as well. So they love to have him everywhere all over the field. Defense gets out there and defense gets off to a really good start, getting them off the field, forcing that 3 and out. And it started off with they had this really nice kind of bubble fake, which we had seen a lot of. They were pretty effective with their fake bubble, and it was a good opportunity for the Lions to work discipline. And I will say that first unit, that first time around, had really good discipline. Later in the game, kind of dropped off a bit, but they ran that fake bubble. They ended up trying to hit those seams over top. The coverage was in a really good spot, and Eric Hallett ended up getting the stop there after kind of a missed tackle by Trevor Nowaski underneath. Then they ran that little flat pattern after a false start, which sent them back. So it turned into a 2nd and 12. They ran the flat pattern underneath, picked up 4 yards, and that set up the 3rd and 8. And that's when the Lions brought the heat. Zach Cunningham got after it, created some pressure, forced an incomplete pass to Dwayne Eskridge. So shout out to Zach Cunningham. I still believe that he looks like one of our best blitzing linebackers. And again, he has stacked that on top in another game here on a 3rd down, just sending the pressure, being able to get a look at true one-on-one situations across the board, but also being able to get a look at who can create a little bit of pressure when you get one-on-one opportunities. And this time around, it was Zach Cunningham. He kind of beat the lineman to his spot, I believe it was, got his shoulder underneath, got some pressure. And it was also, we got to see Eric Hallett in coverage. And I think Eric Hallett had a pretty good job, did a pretty good job all over the place today. They said the Lions had 10 pass breakups on the day, but I thought Eric Hallett really put together a strong performance. And the offense got back on the field. And again, it was, to me, very positive in terms of the momentum they were able to create upfield. The offensive line looked pretty good. It was Dan Skipper at right tackle. It was Jamarco Jones at left tackle, which I thought was interesting there to kind of shake it around like that. Not Giovanni Manu, instead just pushing Dan Skipper over and putting Jamarco Jones in. And Jones seemingly was creating some real run blocking movement. The problem became he gave up a little bit of pressure as a pass protector. He ended up giving up the 1 sack, I believe, that we had with Kyle Allen. But as a run blocker, he had some success. And we started off with an 8-yard cutback split zone look, but all of a sudden we get Zach Horton, who's called with a hold. He was the guy leading the way. They were kind of in that offset eye. He collapses the opposite way. We get this big cutback run. We're feeling good, and he gets caught for the holding call. So again, now we're backed up. And it started off with a miss here by Kyle Allen. He kind of had that open post route to Isaac Tesla that he ended up just throwing high. We had to go back to the ground game, had a 3-yard run. I thought KO maybe have lost his block there a touch, and then we went to a illegal forward pass. So we had 2 plays. I think they ran kind of like that inside corner route potentially was the first one that we got to see to Isaac Tesla. And then the second one around, it was 3rd and long. And I will give credit for Kyle Allen keeping his eyes downfield. See, this is to me one of the biggest differences right now that we've seen between Hendon Hooker and Kyle Allen. I felt that Hendon Hooker got a real good opportunity towards the end of the game to settle himself in because we were in a 2-minute drill. He had to get the ball out fast. Defense is dropping into some of these softer zone coverages. It's not as long developing with your plays. It's get the ball out of your hands. And Hendon Hooker was able to showcase what he's done well. The parts of his game that have looked good so far through preseason, which is, to me, his ability to read the field, his ability to see the coverage, find those open spaces, understand what he's seeing. And when he was in that mode, he looked good. And this was an example of Kyle Allen showing what he was capable of. Now, obviously, you don't like him crossing the line of scrimmage and throwing it because he gets called for the penalty, and he was well across the line. We know just a part of the body has to be behind on the throw. He was about a yard in front when that happened. But I do like how he kept his eyes downfield on 3rd and 16, try to keep us alive. And I mean, who else could it be other than Isaac Tesla on a broken play, getting himself open, sideline grab, a contested grab, would have been a 1st down. We end up having to punt because it is an illegal forward pass, but I still love, and that is one of those penalties, but I still do love the fact that he kept his eyes downfield, and I do love Isaac Tesla on broken plays and those contested plays that he is now really showing, which he's showing really well, the sideline feel that he has, and then, of course, on top of that, again, just the ability to finish and be a guy that on broken plays becomes a real threat. So the Lions end up having to punt. And on this punt play, what I noticed was Shane Zilster kind of allowed that punt, that cutback lane. I thought Jackson Meeks did a good job forcing kind of the spill on the punt first and foremost. But then the defense gets back on the field here. There is some good that we can point to with this defensive possession here, but they end up giving up a touchdown. It starts off with no gain on the first play, and it was a good edge set. We got a good edge set. Keith Cooper was working off the backside. He was working at defensive end early. I think when they put him into defensive tackle towards the end of the game, he seemingly struggled a little bit there because they were really gashing us downhill. They were gashing us, and I believe they pushed Keith Cooper to the defensive tackle role, which, hey, I'm with it, right? Get looks at both, but a defensive end seemingly went better. And I would say the most impactful Keith Cooper I've noticed through preseason has been what he's done on the backside of run plays, right? The scrape down the field, getting flat to the line of scrimmage, scraping down, helping us out. And that very first play, we get a no gain on the play because of a really good edge set by Al-Quadi Muhammad, who I noticed kind of working upfield, forcing that backside stop. And then we got into a 2nd down and 10. And this one, they ended up hitting in just kind of a wide open zone, worked the slot here, worked the seam, picked up a nice hitch for a 1st down. Then we brought Avonte Maddox on the blitz. This was an incomplete pass that turned into a 2nd and 10. They ran that end around play, which was really good. I thought it was very good end around. It was really well, the way that they executed that play, picked up 9 yards on that play, set up a 3rd down and short, a 3rd down and 1 play. They ended up giving them the 1st down, getting downhill, but I still did like the tackle a lot. I thought it was a really good tackle. but ultimately they got downhill for that 1 yard gain. I thought it was a good tackle though, and they kind of just shoved it forward for a yard. Then they ended up picking up 7 yards on that next play. They had this boot play. Cunningham kind of fell behind. Lions, in terms of the discipline aspect, I believe they brought Trevor Nowaski on that backside, and that's what turned into kind of having the wide open zone. Sometimes that is just the case. You bring that blitz, that's the risk that you play. You don't have a guy in that zone. So we end up seeing that be the case. We get into the 2nd down and 7, and it is a 2-yard run. Now, we had that flag for the fake bubble. That kind of went fake bubble, picked up the big game, but it came back because of the flag. And this is when we had DJ Miller, who was ultimately called, who ultimately had a great play down the sideline. DJ Miller was one-on-one. He didn't grab, played one-on-one down the sideline, an incomplete pass. This was a second and 12 play after the penalty. That was an illegal formation. I really like this coverage. He was kind of face guarding, but he didn't ultimately grab. No pass interference was called. It was well contested, set up the 3rd down and 12. And that's unfortunately when they ended up picking up a 27-yard gain. And you could see why it was the case. Lions decided to bring pressure, right? They had him backed up. They decided to bring the pressure. And because of that, they set up a screen, and that shot forward for a huge gain, right? It was an opportunity where we had to get back inside. We didn't because our backers were blitzing upfield, I believe, and that sprung them forward for this massive gain. Shout out to Al-Quade Muhammad. He plays with such a high energy, such a great motor, and this was a great example of that, chasing down the play, saving a touchdown, but still picking up 27 yards on that play. But I did like just the effort that he played with to kind of keep us in it. And then you had a negative 1-yard run on the very next play after our 1st and goal from the 10. So it was a good way to get things started. Grant Stewart made a great wide zone stop. They kind of got outside to the left side. Grant Stewart, stack and shed, attacked his block, got downhill. He's not playing beyond the line of scrimmage. He's attacking guys, but the reason he's able to do that is because he's getting to his spot so quickly. He's playing so fast to maintain and get gap integrity, and he did. He attacked this block, helped force a negative 1-yard run because of a forced fumble that he just attacked the ball, and that was a great play by Grant Stewart, playing really fast. Also, Rocky Sin settling down, setting the edge, helping forcing that back inside. Once again, seeing Rocky Sin working those safety reps. I think that they believe Rocky Sin just looks really good at safety, and again, I think that he may just be both this upcoming year. Like, he may be cornerback and safety because of depth reasons. They may have to have him at safety at times, but I think right now they may just truly believe that, hey, as a safety, that's where his skill set shines the most, right? We signed him as a corner, and he's been fine there, but we saw the physicality immediately, and that transition to safety has looked like the best Rock Ya-Sin. And I'm with it because I think he is really good at covering one-on-one on tight ends, which we saw again today. He is super physical, which we saw in this play. He set the edge, forced it back inside. Like, it just fits his skill set. And I think that got put on display today. And then he put Avonte Maddox in the slot, had a nice little blitz in there today. He's kind of repping that heavily now. It was initially Avonte Maddox getting a lot of those safety looks. So it's been a nice little balance. I think the big positive, you have two guys that can do both, but I think ultimately they just really like seeing Rocky Sin at safety. And I think that's been the biggest reason for the change. Now, ultimately they end up scoring on a little mesh route. DJ seemingly got caught up in kind of the mesh traffic there, and they walk in for a touchdown, and they end up scoring on that first drive. And again, the Lions get kind of shut down for a short possession on their next possession. We get to see the offense get started with a high pass. They went to Tom Kennedy. It was a little bit high there to Tom Kennedy. I thought that it could have been potentially caught, but it was pretty tall for Tom Kennedy. And Kennedy, as we know, was kind of on that shorter side. They ran that over route to Tom Kennedy on the play fake. We stood in well. I thought he had Sione Vaki kind of opening up late on that wheel or the swing route out of the backfield. He didn't throw it, but he threw that second level throw. I love the decision there by Kyle Allen. That's what I like. He stands in, made a good decision, gave some Jared Goff vibes, right? Setting in there, being comfortable and just throwing it a touch high. But as we notice, here was the big difference. The second team offensive line, which was much more impactful in pass protection than that third team offensive line. That second team offensive line was giving us the opportunity to play fake, to set in the pocket, allow these second level throws, these longer developing throws to actually open up. And we missed it here. But I thought when we had Hendon Hooker in the game, we didn't really give ourselves an opportunity for those longer developing plays to open up. We kept finding ourselves once again in third and long, but this pass was just missed a little bit high. Then there's where we got our first really nice run there from Sione Vaki, ends up picking up 5 yards. We then throw the quick hitch to Dominic Lovett. He picks up 5 more yards, kind of knifes himself upfield. Some people thought maybe he was a little bit short there, but ultimately he got himself upfield. Didn't get upfield initially, kind of jabbed and then rolled around the defender, tried to rock around the defender, trying to read that, and he ended up being what I thought was a touch short, but they ended up calling it as a first down. So whatever, I'll take it. That gives us the new set of downs. And when we get to the new first down and 10, we end up getting a short counter run by Sione Vaki. That one is shut down pretty short. A second down and long then comes into play. And this was a fantastic grab. I know he had the fantastic touchdown in the end zone, which we're going to get to ultimately our first points on the board, I believe it was. But this was an excellent grab. I don't even know why I held on to it. You got Brad Holmes, who's talking in the booth, and Brad Holmes is showing love to Nate Lynn. Now, I, on first watch, didn't feel like Nate Lynn was as impactful, which is unfortunate because Brad Holmes was singing his praises as one of those guys that they liked last year. They liked him as UDFA, only played the one game last year before being injured, but had like 8 pressures in that game. And through the last couple of weeks, Nate Lynn has been awesome. This last week, he was very good once again as an edge rusher opposite of Elquanu Muhammad. He was seemingly the most impressive pressure piece, and he was the guy that had a stock going like this. After last week, I thought, okay, Nate Lynn's going to make this team. That was the takeaway for me. After seeing that game, I thought, okay, Nate Lynn's going to set himself up to make this team. And I just don't know that he was as impactful today. I'll have to watch it back, but it just didn't feel as impactful as a pressure piece, which is unfortunate because, again, if he put together another really good game, I think he was really getting to that point where it was very clear that he was going to make this team. I don't know where he's at after that game. After this game, I still feel like he's in a positive spot. But we didn't see as much of that impact as a pressure piece. But we did get a lot of love that we heard from Brad Holmes in the booth as one of those guys that he was keeping his eye on. They had that counter run for Vaki, ended up only picking up a yard, but it was that little underneath pattern. It was a great contested grab. It was kind of like bobbled out of his hands, but somehow we just found a way in a contested situation for Isaac Tesla to pull it down. And that has been awesome because when I was early there at training camp, I didn't feel like he was consistently converting some of these contested situations, but on an underneath pass to just finish through this kind of traffic is a massive positive. He sets us up with a very convertible 3rd down and 4. And this was a really good ball. This was a really good route by Dominic Lovett. He ran like that quick slant, separated a ton, but unfortunately did not catch it. And we had this last week with Meeks. This time we had it with Dominic Lovett. We just have to have consistency. And that's the big positive for Meeks again today, too, is that Meeks is getting a high volume. Last week, it was a bad drop, even though he was very productive. And that's like, that's the one knock. This week, he didn't have that. But again, we get Dominic Lovett back late in the week with injuries, and he just doesn't come down with this pass. So again, what I've said on my channel, and I continue to feel this way, is what I've seen from Dominic Lovett is exactly what I kind of expected to get. Lovett is really good when the ball is on his frame. He runs really nice routes. He separates well. He transitions incredibly well. He just doesn't consistently pull the ball down when it's away from his frame. Howard Lyon's going to value that. Typically, it's not great if you're not catching passes. However, the flip side is this was kind of expected based on his Georgia film. The problem is he's not showing massive improvements there. Jackson Meeks has a drop last week. This week, he doesn't have those drops, and he's very productive, very high volume. This was a great opportunity this time. It was kind of roles reversed, where last week we see that, we don't get Jackson Meeks pulling it down, and he's open, and it would have been a big play for Hendon Hooker. This time would have been a first down to keep the drive alive. This time he got himself open on a quick slant, just didn't pull the ball down when it got outside his frame. Sure, it was a touch high, but it was a catchable pass, and he needed to catch that pass, and he didn't. And ultimately, the Lions had to punt, and it shortens that drive to only 16 yards. But the defense gets out there, ends up getting their stop, 3 straight plays, no yards converted for the Miami Dolphins. So we get this punt. Miami takes over, and we get a great edge stop. This was a fantastic, one of the better plays I think that we saw on the day. We have Avonte Maddox working off that left tackle, slips his block, makes the tackle, no gain on that first play. So it was an excellent start to get things started. Ultimately, they call it an illegal formation. They back him up by 5 yards. Now it's a first down and 15, but unfortunately now here we get it called for an illegal hands to the face. So flags all over the place. Grant Stewart forces a pass breakup. This was a fantastic play by Grant Stewart. Top down, breaks on the back, breaks it up from behind. I was like, awesome play, but ultimately we get called for a defensive penalty on I think it was it was called for a defensive penalty, illegal use of hands in the back end, and that ends up kind of resetting the downs. But the Lions still hold strong, and it starts off with, I thought, a little bit of a pressure from Broderick Martin. They throw this seam pass. They were open. The pass was a little bit high. It falls incomplete. But I love what I'm seeing because Broderick Martin, again, is continuing to show a little bit of an addition as a pass rusher. I don't know if they got in a zero and were like, hey, and it's very possible because he was in that battle last week. He stuck around last year with a guy like Chris Smith. and Chris Smith ended up being the more consistent player, so they rocked with Chris Smith. He played about 10 snaps a game, but they leaned that direction. This time, we're now seeing Broderick Martin starting to add that little bit of juice to his game. And I think we were seeing that a little bit from Chris Smith as well, but I would actually give the nod to Broderick Martin to this point, picking up where he left off last week. I thought he showed a lot more flash plays. This wasn't his only pressure in the game. The problem is he also had 2 offside penalties, at least 2. You can see it. He was trying to jump the snap. He was jumping it, and he was getting called for penalties. So a couple of things that do need to be cleaned up for sure. But ultimately, I do like the little bit of juice that he is showing off the line of scrimmage. He's trying to get a jump off the line of scrimmage, trying to get in position early. And ultimately, this is a high pass. Broderick got a little bit of pressure. He was open up the seam. Then it was Alan George who nearly pulled down an interception, nearly got an interception. I believe it was Pat O'Connor. I could be wrong. I believe it was Pat with a little bit of pressure. And so this outside pass near the sideline, Alan George jumps it, nearly has an interception. And then I think it was Barku. Now, Barku is not perfect today, but Barku had 2 fantastic plays at cornerback. This first one with a pass breakup in coverage, and later in this game, he made another great play. This time, I believe he was in some sort of like cover 3 look. So he was the outside corner, got to play over the 1, and we saw the 1 breakdown, we saw the 1 breakdown. The number 2 ran the cornerback, which essentially would become his responsibility because now that is the new number 1 once those responsibilities shift. However, Barku on a 3rd down made an excellent read. He saw the quarterback's eyes, read through his eyes, and Luke Barku drove on the pass, forced an incomplete pass. Safety works over top, and it's a great situational play because while ultimately that would eventually become his responsibility, it was a great read by Luke Barku through that play to ultimately help us get back on the field and get the offense back on the field and ultimately help us get a drive going and score a touchdown on a 4th down situation and get the first points on the board. A 7-yard run working behind Dan Skipper. Caleb and Kingsley were a little bit knocked back, but you get behind Dan Skipper, you end up picking up 7 yards. Then we end up getting a failed pickup and pass protection, which was unfortunate. It was Craig Reynolds. It was Craig Reynolds on that possession where, it looked like that he just was a little bit late with that blitz pickup. They end up kind of letting him through. We end up picking up no yards on our next play. And then it's a 4-yard run. Craig Reynolds, I thought this was a really good hedge block. This is what I was talking about. This is what our left tackle was doing a really nice job of in this game. And unfortunately, he gave up the 1 sack, but we did get to see good reps in there from Jamarco Jones working at left tackle. Kind of hedge block, sealed it off, helped us get 4 yards upfield. Quick curl pass to Jackson Meeks. Then a short run once again for Craig Reynolds, picks up a yard on 1st down, only gains a yard. I thought this was more of a blown block by Jamarco Jones. And then this is when Isaac Tesla ran a beautiful route, settled himself down behind that 2nd level. And this is where I think we are seeing a real separation. One, he is getting much more opportunity with his time in the pocket. And again, I'm not looking for excuses for Hendon. I've just seen the same Hendon. He's reading the field well. He is just he didn't get a ton of opportunities today because of poor pass protection, but I don't like how uncomfortable he feels when he's under pressure. But what I do like is that he is constantly at least stepping on the field. When he feels pressure, he's getting up and he's getting close back to line of scrimmage. And I guess credit to him, he didn't fumble, which if he didn't have the past 2 fumbles, we wouldn't feel as bad about what Hendon Hooker has put on the field. But today he didn't have those, just that he has had those. But today, at least credit to him, he didn't. What I like about Kyle Allen is, man, Kyle Allen looks very controlled. He is good off script. He moves around well. And again, today we're starting to see little pump fakes. He's pump fakes. He hits that nice 2nd level throw to Isaac Tesla, who sits down in this big zone window. We end up picking a big 1st down. Then we get a 4-yard run working behind Nite Mutai. So picks up a medium gain. Kingsley Ogunkwan was kind of knocked back, but we get behind Nite Mutai, a 0-yard run, a negative run. Ultimately, on the very next play, a negative 1-yard run. I thought it was a blown block on that play once again. Craig Reynolds, and this set up that 4th and 6, and the line said we're going for it. And this was honestly a fantastic drive. I mean, this was a well-done drive by Kyle Allen, really the best situational drive we had all preseason. And the big thing for me was it wasn't that it was just great situationally, is that our offense was in a flow. And he throws this double move route to Isaac Tesla, back shoulder, cornerback sits on top. Kyle Allen makes a fantastic throw because he throws it back shoulder. He stays away from the overtop coverage, and we score a touchdown. It was an excellent throw by our quarterback, Kyle Allen, to score a touchdown. It was an excellent adjustment and a great contested grab once again. He didn't get over top, but he makes a fantastic contested grab. We got to see from Isaac Tesla, puts us on the board with a fantastic touchdown in a 4th down and 6. And we kind of had it was just overall that, right? The defense was kind of The defense was kind of settled back, and ultimately they make this fantastic grab as a touchdown into the end zone. So you love to see that. You absolutely love to see that. So great job by the Lions offense getting in the end zone just like that. Now, that said, though, this drive, I believe I have two drives mixed up here. So I want to get these right because Lions ultimately scored their last two drives because I'm reading through this. I'm like, these are a little off. So bear with me. What I just explained to you was fantastic. It was a 2-minute drill touchdown, but I have to go like this. Let me reel it back a little bit. I got to be honest. I messed it up in my notes. Flip it back because we still ended up scoring a touchdown on this drive. I'm reading through my notes. I'm like, okay, this was a good drive by Kyle, a couple of good throws, but it wasn't Kyle dominating. Kyle Allen's dominance on a 2-minute drive is coming. But it was first Jackson Meeks on a 4th down and 7 scoring his touchdown. This is where they're in this quarters coverage. It looked like, but may have been something else. They run a really good kind of rub route between the two receivers. He's working the slot. He's got a wide open touchdown, walks into the end zone. And again, it was a very good job by Kyle Allen. He handled the situation well, got us into a really good look, seemingly read the coverage right. And the pick play was wide open. Again, Jackson Meeks, nothing special here, but ran his route with really good timing, catch and run, walked into the end zone. So give him some credit. Now, that touchdown is coming, and I guess we'll jump to that quickly because the defense quickly got us off the field, but I want to jump to that next touchdown the Lions ultimately had. The defense forced a 4th down stop ultimately through the next possession. There was some good, there was some bad that was thrown in there. You had a 9-yard completion over the middle of the field. Hallett lays his big hit, but he kind of stays on his feet. You get then a really good run stop, but Martin's called for an offside penalty. Uku Nwaski, they're all in there. Braddock Martin gets called for an offside penalty. So 0-yard run turns into a 1st down. So again, just too many of those little things. And that's Martin. Martin was trying to get a good jump, but he jumped offside. It was unfortunate, but I understand what he's trying to do. He's trying to get into the backfield. Hallett then drops an interception. He was seemingly beat over top, but at least he got back into the play. Read the ball deep downfield, tracked it well, just dropped an interception. Then we got Stewart, who made a nice little stop on an out route, kind of tracked it out of bounds. It became a 3rd down, set up on the 3rd down and 3. Again, we had a great sack. Isaac Uku showed a little bit. I think this was Uku's long arm. Regardless, though, Uku gets in on a sack with Mitchell Agude. They had the running back open, but the reason the running back was open, or I wouldn't say the reason the running back was open, but with the running back getting open, because essentially what they did is they saw us running man. It was a 3rd down play. They have 2 guys clearing out and have a route underneath to the back. And that's what Grant Stewart tried to fight over. But as he's fighting over it, he gets called for a face mask penalty. And the drive continues even after a great play Now, with the drive continuing, they go to a screenplay, and Nick Whiteside makes a really good stop on the edge. Uku then gets upfield, forces a 2-yard cutback. A lot of good plays. This was by far, to me, the best day I've seen from Isaac Uku in a preseason. By far, a lot of positives across the board. A very good positive day for Isaac Uku. So I'll give him a lot of credit for what Isaac Uku was doing in this game. I thought he had a really good game. And then we had Pittman, who kind of chased down a 1st down play action play on the very next play. This was let me get this play right here. I don't know exactly what this one was. Yeah, this was a short play that just was chased down. No, it was a 3rd down and 2. I'm sorry. It was a 3rd down and 2 after a 2-yard run. After a medium gain on Nick Whiteside. So it's a 3rd down and 2. We get it chased down ultimately, but they ended up kind of picking up the 1st down there on a 3rd down and 2. So now with the sticks kind of resetting, picking up another 1st down because of that, Lions limited to a 6-yard gain on the first play, getting a little bit of pressure from Miles Adams. I think Miles Adams continues to kind of string together a couple of good games here. Like Miles Adams getting a little bit of pressure. You don't always notice it. This time would be one of them because it was a quick speed out on the outside by Nick Whiteside that, ends up forcing him out of bounds. But the ball's out so fast that you don't get to see what Miles Adams was doing from a pressure perspective. But regardless, the Lions ended up then getting a run stop on the very next play because now you get to see Miles Adams stack, shed, handles the guard, run stop. Then they run this crossing back to the end zone again. Whiteside was beat on this play, but the throw was missed in front, and ultimately the Lions ended up getting a stop there. And then it was the 4th down and 4. They decided to go for it, and the Lions defense was excellent. The play before, not great, but it was incomplete because it was missed. This was excellent coverage across the board. I don't know who was all out there. I know Max was out there. I know Whiteside was out there. I believe it may have been DJ Jones, but I don't know across the board. Regardless, it was excellent. It was excellent coverage, tied along with a great sack on 4th down. Isaac Uku, Pittman getting in there late after the blitz, and Uku got off his block because the offensive line was kind of trying to deal with Pittman then next. So Pittman ends up flying through. It was excellent job, Lions get the sack. Great job there across the board. It wasn't just deep. It wasn't just the pressure. It was also really good coverage in the back of the end. And this was the drive to me that was the fantastic drive for Kyle Allen. He put it all together here, right? Horton on an out route, then gives up a sack. So one blown block we have, but then he responds. Love it on a quick out route outside. We go for it on fourth down. It was great transition upfield, 6 yard. We get Tesla kind of settles, dropping into his zone. We then get the seam play, but I was talking about earlier to Meeks, which was a big pickup, and then ultimately get a 7 yard you get a 7 yard run behind Nitain Mutai, which is fantastic. Vaki back underneath for a 4 yard gain. And that's when they hit the back shoulder double move play that the cornerback sat on top of this time. And they scored the touchdown, as I explained earlier. We go into halftime. Martin showed a little bit more juice again as a pressure piece, got a little bit of a swim move. And this is when we get into the second half. And the defense got started well. Pittman on the backside stop. Whiteside with a pass breakup on Weiss, who ended up cooking towards the end. But he made a good play there. And then Hallett with a contested, incomplete kind of out route. Lions get a stop. It's 3rd and 6. Offense, though, unfortunately, once again, the same story, just not enough positives on early downs. And way too much pressure was allowed in this spot. I mean, there were some good plays. There's way more bad plays, right? Again, they're moving Manu at left tackle here. And he wasn't great from initial watch. That could be different when I see it again, but it just didn't seem great. Again, here from Giovanni Manu. And you end up getting Sailors with a 1 yard run. You get this rollout, which is the play that I don't like from Hendon Hooker because he puts his eyes down too quickly, just isn't patient enough outside of the pocket or when plays break down, takes a sack. Sailor gets a 1 yard run, and we're just punting it away. Horton kind of lost his block. Now, Lovett did a really good job on the punt here. And Lovett not only had the recovered fumble on a muff punt because he played really well as a gunner, but another gunner rep here that was really good that we won't talk about much, but we should because Lovett contains well, forces it the other way. It's just that we lost the backside and they end up picking up a good game. But shout out to Lovett because for all the, the little drop that was in here, he's, again, that's expected based on his film, but he is doing a good job at gunner, maybe the best gunner performance today because not only that recovery of the muff punt, but also that play before. Defensively, then, we just got gashed. A big downhill run. DJ was in good coverage on a crosser, limited to a 3 yard gain. Chris Smith had a great run stuff, but they're already in such a good spot because of the poor backside contain on the punt. And this is where Achman got hurt. Hopefully he's okay. We're told it's kind of a pec injury. He didn't come back in this game, so hopefully he's okay, but it doesn't sound great. I guess we'll just have to wait and see. But Chris Smith made an excellent run stuff, very similar to the Miles Adams play earlier. And then that's when they scored the touchdown, just running up the seam. Russell nearly kind of ripped it out. I think we got a little bit of pressure on the backside from Keith, but they ended up scoring there, unfortunately, working out that defensive end role. And again, this was kind of the story of the second half, right? A sack immediately. You get the new tight end that comes into the game, who we recently signed because of, injuries at the tight end spot. He works around a split zone block, lose that block. Now we're sacked. Okay, now we're backed up. Then we get a negative 1 yard run on a pull. Then we get a negative 1 yard pull by Britton at right guard. And then ultimately Manu, blown block, hits the arms on the throw, hits Hendon Hooker's arm on the throw. It's incomplete. And that's how that drive just went. It was ugly. It was ugly across the board. Not great across the board. Not good protection. But ultimately we ended up scoring because Lovett scooped up. My bad. Ignore that. Lovett scooped up a great gunner rep, right? He gets upfield, punter muffs it. He's in a good spot, tracking him, kind of just staying in front of him. Shout out to Jack Fox. Jack Fox punts really well as well, so that it helps our gunners because they're in his face, but it's also a good release by him. Offense gets back on the field. No yard gain on the first play. I thought Nice lost his block, but then 8 yard run. They went left. And I think they wanted to see with Giovanni Manu in the game, how much movement can he create? And with Mason Miller checking inside at guard, how much movement are these guys going to create? And I will say they did create some movement, right? They did. An 8 yard run that way, 2 yard run, 5 yard run, 2 yard run. Now, that being said, that time there was a defense fan on the backside to kind of shut that down. They finally decided, they went 2 yards again left. They finally decided to go the opposite way eventually. Manu then gets called for a hold. They kind of slipped the blitz, and this was when we ended up getting 2 plays by Hendon Hooker that were good. Hendon Hooker scores a touchdown, great scramble. I wish that was on his film, but it's not because we get a holding call by Manu, which I thought was pretty weak anyways. Then ultimately at the check it down, we take our points, take the field goal. So I wish that was still there. It was a lot of just, let's go this way. We didn't throw it much, and then ultimately it would have been a really good scramble by Hooker, which again, I just still don't love how fast he was to put his eyes down, but he did slip it. He did get upfield, and he made something out of a nasty pass protection unit there in the second half. And unfortunately, it's called back. Defense gets back on the field at the field goal. Strickland has a really good run stuff. His really good play, which he needs to have because Hallett is on his neck. This dude's playing everywhere at wide corner. Now he's at free safety, punches out a pass from behind. He continues to play well. Third down, they run a man screen. It's blown up. Pittman gets in there first. Defense gets to it. Eric Hallett has a really good rep as a gunner or as a jammer on punt return. So again, he's doing everything. Jammer, free safety, Cornerback, he's doing everything. I don't think he's great at corner, but man, he's played slot earlier. He's literally played everywhere. Kind of gives me some Will Harris vibes, playing everywhere. Now we get back out there offensively, and we got it going a little bit with a good run. We get behind Zach Johnson, a new addition. We get a 2-yard wide zone run, then a 5-yard. We just get right downhill. Again, this was Johnson to me who had a good little push, but Jackson Meeks, illegal shift. These are the things we can't have. Meeks gets called for illegal shift. Now we're backed up. Now we run this quick curl route to Zach Horton, which is a first down. We end up having a first down on this quick curl route to Zach Horton. And again, Horton, maybe one of the most positive days. He had 3 receptions, had the hold early, but had 3 receptions today. But this was a weak call, I thought. Regardless, kind of gets jolted back, and ultimately we just hand off a draw. It was a good run, but we had to punt once again because we set ourselves back. Defensively, Broderick jumps off sides. Can't have that. Play action behind the linebackers anyway. Then you get a 6-yard cutback run. I thought they kind of went through Agude that time. Kennelly made a great stop for 3 yards. Shut up a third down and short because he stepped down and just delivered a hammer. I love watching him step down and hit. Think he's going to make the team. Took a lot of reps today. Gilbert and Turner get kind of a run stop, but they end up getting through for a first down. And this is when they end up scoring the touchdown on this kind of late play in the back of the end zone, broken play. And Allen George just lost his man late. Very difficult to cover that up, and that scores a touchdown. The offense gets back on the field. Offense finally kind of gets some movement here again. Zach Horton, boot play. Mason Miller, blown block here. Again, the run game is just not there. Kenny James, this was really the first drop back pass we got an opportunity to see. And unfortunately, in a limited opportunity, we're watching Hendon Hooker just rip it way too high. Throws it high. It's incomplete. That's unfortunate. A 9-yard run, which was good, behind Johnson and Neese. The rollout play or scramble turned into nothing on the 3rd and short. But again, the legal shift. Now, instead of going for it on 4th and 1, now it's 3rd and 6, which you would think, okay, that's fine. But the problem is, now you have to go drop back pass. Pressure gets in. The pass is high to Horton. Manu gives off some edge heat, and again we're having to punt after a 3rd down and long situation. So you can see we just didn't do well enough in a lot of these spots. And again, defensively, we had a dropped in by Luke Barku, which I think Barku played pretty well. He had a couple of big plays. We had a delay of game, which backed them up. Pittman then kind of tipped the pass, but a 3rd and 7, squeezes past him. We end up giving up the first down there, which stinks. Barku then ultimately gets beat by Weiss. Weiss started to cook towards that end there. There's a fake pitch. Gilbert seemingly bit down underneath. Boom, they're back over top. We can't have those, but we did. We were way less disciplined against all that movement with the second and really the back end, the 3rd stringers, as we started to see. Strickland draws a hold on a blitz. They run a deep comeback route. We're bringing a lot of heat. We just weren't getting a lot of pressure. We were bringing a lot of bodies. Weren't getting a lot of pressure. Offensive pass interference. Ultimately, now we're in a spot where it's like, okay, we're going to get ourselves off the field, but we don't, because an inside zone route run on a really long situation after the hold picks up 26 yards. 26 yards. Okay. Then the offensive pass interference pushes them back up again. DJ Miller has a pass breakup really well in a slant underneath. I love to see that. And then they run the hitch route, which picks up 11 out wide, which is way too many to give up on a 2nd down and 20, sets up a 3rd down and 9. And this is when DJ gets beat once again on a 3rd down and 9, and they ended up picking up the first down. So again, we just didn't play that well. Then we started getting gashed on the run game all across the board. We're getting gashed. We ultimately make the goal line stand, which gives us our last opportunity for a touchdown. And we make a goal line stand between Hallett with a great pass breakup. Quarterback should have ran the back of the end zone. Hallett doing a lot of work. Eric Hallett's going to make this team. That was one of my bold predictions. I also said that our linebacker would as well, and I don't think that's going to happen. That is I can't think of who our young linebacker is. That was pretty good last year. I can't think of his name, but I don't think it's going to happen. But I think Eric Hallett is going to make this team, and he is putting on a display. Pass breakup. Sailors ultimately gets a good kick return, sets us up from the 39, and this is when Hendon Hooker got to play, and I think in his best opportunity, because it was quick passes. It was get the ball up fast. And we're going to wrap it up here. A blown block by Johnson. Incomplete. Hit on the throw. Okay, incomplete. Now it's 2nd and 10. Now you go to 11-yard quick hitch. You hit Meeks. This is where I think he was at his best. Nothing special, but it's a great read. It's quickly into his own window, and he gets upfield, picks up 11. Right? Then you check it on the Sailors. He gets blown up. Okay, quickly back to it. 10-yard. You get Ronnie Bell, great play, very reliable. You kind of settle him in underneath, kind of got rolled up on pretty rough there, but he picks up 10 yards, gets upfield again. Great run after catch. I love to see that. Then 9 yards, quick hitch. Great read by the quarterback. Great read by him. I mean, we're doing our thing here, right? We're moving the ball because he's reading the field well. And then we get a pressure on a blitz, a 1-yard scramble. He kind of fell forward because we just picked up 9. Now we get 10 because now that we moved the chain. I don't love how fast he's putting his eyes down, but he at least made something of it, and he is stepping up in the pocket. And again, I would have loved to see this because this would have given fans something very positive to remember of the game of Hendon Hooker. But unfortunately, it's just, man, it feels like every time he shakes that 8 ball, Every time it's like, all right, maybe this could be okay. Something bad comes up. And it's Meeks. They get this really deep curl route up the slide, up the seam. Great eyes. I think he was reading through it well. He was reading the field well. And then it's the interception. And that's how we wrap the game. He read it well. He had Horton into the flat. Would have been a positive game. Probably pushes up inside the 10, but the defender jumps it, smacks it down. And it's always a smack because you could see by the motion, defender's showing blitz. Hooker's like, throw the blitz. Awesome. And he has a guy open. But you want to see an arm angle there, doesn't really give it, just kind of put it high. And that was at very worst, you're hoping at least he's going to bat that down. But he pulls it in with an acrobatic, ridiculous catch and ends the game on interception. So that's how we're going to wrap this thing up. I appreciate y'all for joining me. You can see good positive game from a couple of players across the board here. Just an unfortunate way to end it. Kyle Allen is, I think, really solidifying himself because he is playing in a better situation today, but he made the most of it. Yes, Deron Gilbert. That's who I meant. Deron Gilbert. I appreciate you stepping in and saying that. I meant Deron Gilbert. That's the guy. Hasn't been as noticeable, but I think Eric Hallett is going to make this team. It's Deron Gilbert who I was forgetting. That's the guy I was forgetting. Anyways, I appreciate you joining over here. I know I went a little bit longer than usual over here on Bleacher Report, but I wanted to talk about it all, and we did. We got it in. I messed up a little bit earlier in there, and I apologize that, but we're good. I'm going to end it here. I appreciate you joining me. Have a great night. And I will see you guys next week to wrap up the preseason, which feels so good because that means it's regular season time. I'm out. Shout out to Maleficent for stepping in. I appreciate it. We out of here.